In every human being, there exists this struggle that's taking place between these two wolves. They live in every human, a good wolf and a bad wolf. One wolf is kind and generous and compassionate and good. The other wolf is evil and vicious and envious and has all of the bad traits. The grandson looks at the grandfather and he asks him, okay, grandfather, well, which one of these two wolves wins in the end? And then the grandfather kind of smiles and looks at his grandson and says, whichever wolf you feed. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brother Tahir.
Walaikum salam, Father.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for giving me this great honor of being with you here, Father.
God bless you, Tahir. The honor is all mine. So today, Tahir, we want to talk about the return of the souls to this world, the raja, the reincarnation of the souls in the time of the Qaim and in other times in order that they may carry out this everlasting battle that is taking place between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And we mentioned before that the narrations of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have mentioned and in great detail a time period which they refer to as a raja. Raja is an Arabic word that literally translates to return, and it is referring to an important time, and it is a concept that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said that whoever does not believe in our raja, whoever does not believe in our return, is not from us. So it's a core concept. We have to accept it. We have to believe in it. And it is the return of the souls to the world once again. Yeah. And we know from the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad that the souls are constantly in a state of return. And there's verses in the Quran that indicate this, that indicate that there were souls that were living in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, who were living also in the time of Yusuf, the Prophet, Joseph. And we know from the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad that there is an ultimate time where all of the good souls come back and all of the most evil souls come back. So the best of the best and the worst of the worst come back in order to have a final battle. There's this final struggle for control over the planet where all of the evil villains incarnate on the planet at the same time as to where previously, from the time of Adam all the way down, you would have certain, for example, you'd have Pharaoh incarnating in a time period and Nimrod incarnating in a time period, and another villain, Abu Lahab, incarnating in a time period, and Pontius Pilate in another time period. And you have the same thing with the prophets and the messengers, Ezekiel coming at a time, Krishna coming at a time, Buddha coming at a time, Muhammad coming at a time. Well, in the return of returns, which I like to call it, this time period where the Qaim comes back and he has 144,000 with him that are referenced in the book of Revelation, and the return of Jesus Christ. We have the return of all of the best souls simultaneously at the same time, and they're in different parts of the planet, and they're all imbued with these souls of these holy people, and they are working to establish a divine just state and basically conquer or push back the forces of evil or darkness. And the same thing is happening at that time, where Iblis also gathers up all of his soldiers, the worst of tyrants and evil ones, hypocrites and disbelievers, and they all come back at the same time. And that's a very significant event, because then you have, you have in this time, in this day and age, the age of the Qaim, we have all of the prophets and the messengers have come back. And we have also all of the evil ones have come back as well. Pharaoh, Nimrod, Pontius Pilate, Judas Iscariot, Yazid, Muawiyah, Abu Lahab, Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, all of these characters have come back. And they are fighting one another. Initially, it's not a physical fight. Initially, it is an ideological, theological struggle. Which takes place, whereby Iblis's soldiers are all ruling the earth in positions of power, or propagating the ideology which is the anti-Christ, the anti-Mahdi, the anti-Muhammad, the anti-God theology and religion, which is really the supremacy of man and selfishness, and we have the idea that we can do whatever it is that we want to do, and that we can choose, in fact, the leader, and our choice is better than the choice of God. And that is exactly Iblis's religion, because Iblis fell out of paradise because he rejected the person who was appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thought that he knew better. And so obviously he wants all mankind to follow in his footsteps. And it's very logical. It makes sense if human beings would just contemplate over that. Iblis fell. He wants all other people to fall. He fell because he rejected the person who was appointed by God, and that means he rejects the supremacy of God. And so he would want all other people to fall too in the same way, by rejecting as well, to show that human beings are no better, that they too reject the Adam of their time and reject the supremacy of God. And you have all of the righteous people, and they are, in the very beginning, propagating the ideology of and the belief system and the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the religion of Imam al-Mahdi, the religion of the Qaim, which is the supremacy of God, that only God can choose the leader. Mankind has no right to do so. Okay? So now we know that on the planet, in this time, it's going to be filled with the worst of the worst and the best of the best. And this is actually a time period that will never be repeated again in history. So from the time of Adam up until now, you had prophets that had returned in other prophets' time periods. So you had the return of Elijah in the time period of Jesus as John the Baptist. You had the return of Jonah in the time period of Imam Al-Sadiq in the persona of one of his companions, or the return of Gabriel in the form of Abil Khattab in the time period of Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam. You had that going on, but you did not have that they incarnated into human bodies, all of them together, all prophets and messengers at the same time, except for in this day and age, because this is the ultimate battle. This is the time period where God promises that Iblis will be killed. This is the time period whereby in the Quran, when Iblis says, "Grant me respite until the appointed time," that is that appointed time, the day of the rise, the Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of the Qiyam of the Qaim, the day of the rise of the Qaim, in which Iblis is finally defeated and destroyed. And it is a time period where they all come back at the same time, as kind of a karmic effect, whereby all of those righteous souls, martyrs, prophets, and messengers are able, under the banner of the Qaim, to exact revenge, take their revenge from all those tyrants that had killed them before, or oppressed them before, and it's their chance also to rule and see that promise of God come into effect and establish the Sharia and fulfill the verse of the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ الْوَارِثِينَ. And we want to bestow our blessings upon those who were oppressed in the land and to make them imams and to make them the inheritors. The inheritors are Muhammad and the family of Muhammad in the first degree, and then all of the prophets and the messengers and the righteous ones. And so now, what do we have? We have in this time, these souls are descending upon the earth, good and bad. Not all of the people of the planet would be filled with the souls of these returned individuals, because we have on the planet now billions upon billions of human beings, and we have not as many righteous saints and good people throughout history, nor do we have as many extremely evil, tyrannical people that will qualify to descend in this time. And so there is this mechanism whereby the souls that are good and that are bad come back into this world. All souls that have passed away and have a chance to return to the dunya, Tahir, they get a choice of vessels to enter into. Everybody that enters here, they choose the body that they come into. They choose that body, and they know that body, and that body is the a part of this family, and they know all the details about it before they come into it. And they don't get to choose freely out of all of the bodies on the earth, but rather they're given a certain range of choices to choose from based on their karmic, let's say, points that they had gotten, or their karma from their previous incarnation limits them to a certain set of choices, and the soul will always choose the best one for it out of those choices. And when I say the best one for it, I mean the one that is closest to it, the one that has a self or a nefs that is most compatible with its soul for the purpose of it carrying out the mission which it wants to accomplish when it is incarnating in that particular incarnation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So you would have, for example, if you had an evil entity or an evil soul, and that evil soul wanted, to further clarify for our viewers, if that evil soul wanted to come down and, for example, fornicate, so it lusts after fornication, and it was involved in that in previous incarnations, and it wishes to experience that again, for sure, it's not going to choose to incarnate into the body of a nun or in the body of somebody who is abstinent or has a good nature or a chaste nature, but rather they would choose a body that has been born, that has the potential to be involved because of its life plot and story in in that type of activity. So we have then, and it's very important for our viewers to understand the complexities regarding the body and the self and the soul and the differences between them. You see, our bodies here, ourselves, our eyes, when we say me, what is it that we are referring to? When a person says me or I, he's usually describing the collective union of three parts, and that is the body of the human being, and the body, it lives for a while, it's born and it ends up dying and going into the ground. And so that can't be the true identity of our own selves, right? And then you have the self of the human being, and the self of the human being, when we say self, the nafs, the ana, the ego, the I. What human beings are actually referring to is this false identity, this fake identity that is created. It is a cluster of emotions that exists in the in the chest region, and it is based on the feedback that we have gotten throughout our lives from the various stimuli, those human beings, those experiences, those programs, those interactions that affected us throughout our life and led us to create an illusionary character within our heads and within our hearts that does not really exist, but is who we think that we are. So just like a child will watch a cartoon or a movie, for example, of the Ninja Turtles, or a movie of Power Rangers, or whatever else that they're into. And adults also can watch these comedy movies, or these kind of or wrestling, or whatever else it is that's affecting their psyche. And you'll find that these human beings, just like much like monkeys or parrots, they will begin to imitate some of the lines from the movies, or gain the sense of humor that they liked from the movie. They adapt these certain qualities, or these traits, or this humor, or these aspects of the personality from the outside that wasn't a part of them, and they stick it to themselves. It leaves an imprint on the self, and the self becomes the collective result of these emotions that the human being experienced as he watched this movie, and as he had a fight with this friend, and as he liked this girl, and she told him that he was ugly, or she told him that he was funny and handsome, and therefore it gains more confidence or less confidence. This human being that has been born with enough wealth to be involved in these high societies, or his tongue becomes accustomed to certain types of tastes, food or drink, etc. All of the emotions that are built and clustered together and have an imprint on them from the experiences of the ears and the eyes and the nostrils and the mouth and the hands, becomes the self of the human being, or in short, how the human being views that he is, or the illusionary self that he thinks that he is, this avatar character. Like if we use the allegory of a video game, so to speak, imagine you're playing a video game right now. The body would be the body of that character that you're playing.
Yeah.
The ego would be the personality of that character. How in some of the cut scenes you'll find that the character is kind of like talking and interacting, and the storylines playing out. The self is that personality that is speaking and acting and all of that. And then so we're made of the body, and we're made of this cluster of emotions, which is the self, or the ana, or the I, or the ego. And it is this cluster of emotions that drives our vehicle, that drives the body of the human being and causes it to act. And I'll prove that to you and explain it to you so you understand. We have when those emotions, for example, when the body becomes hungry, those emotions will act because it doesn't like the feeling that it's experiencing, right? Because it's a cluster of feelings or emotions. It doesn't like that feeling of hunger, and so therefore it will motivate the body to go out and look for food, for example. And it is fed through the senses. So the ego is created through the five senses of the human being, And whether it is negative stimuli or feedback that's coming in, or positive stimuli or feedback, that is in the end what creates within us a good, decent self, or an evil, bad, nasty self. And then if we go back to the allegory of the video game, we are comprised of a third part, and that is our souls. And it is the soul that is represented by the character or yourself who's playing the video game from behind. When you speak, you're unable to be heard in the video game, right?
Yes.
You're just playing behind the scenes. You're trying to control the personality of the character in the video game and trying to control thereby the body of the character in the video game. The same exact thing is taking place here on the planet, whereby the souls are returning back to the earth, and they have a specific mission, and the specific mission that they have is to control fully the body, in order that they may carry out the mission or experience that they need to have here on earth. When the souls, whether good or evil, enter into a body, the resistance that it gets from being able to carry out the scenario that it wants to carry out, or the life that it needs to carry out, is the ego. It is these emotions, the self, which always comes into clash with the soul. And it is for that reason that the prophets and the messengers, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jesus, all of the righteous prophets and messengers from before, they spoke over and over again about the necessity and the need to basically like defeat the ego, or to defeat the I, and that the most important form of jihad or struggle is the struggle, or the jihad, the fight against the self. Because if a person loses in a war and gets killed, he'll end up losing his body. But if a person loses in the battle against the self, and the self manages to forbid the soul from carrying out those acts and deeds and scenarios and missions that it was sent here to do, then a person can end up losing his soul. And if you lose your soul, there's no coming back from that. And so a loss of life in a physical jihad, a battle where your body dies, is one that a person can afford, but a jihad that of the self in which you lose is not one that you can afford. So in other words, these souls are not from this world. They're coming down unto this world. They seek to possess bodies like avatars in a virtual reality game or in a video game that a person is playing, and they have the mission to totally control the body in order that they may accomplish that which they were sent to do. And so the evil souls will basically choose bodies that have already evil selves, that are engaged in evil activities, that like that their self leans towards evil already. So then when it becomes possessed by an evil soul, or that evil soul incarnates into it, they are compatible with one another, and the resistance is minimal on behalf of the evil self. And the same thing is true when we speak about the good side, that the good soul will choose inevitably out of its karmic choices, that it has the self that leans most towards goodness, and that is most submissive and humble, and that is most compatible with the personality of that soul which is coming upon it, so that it has minimal resistance and has the optimal chance of survival and being able to take over the body as a vehicle, and to be in full control. So now we know that the soul and the self are struggling with one another. The person's true identity is the soul, It's not the body, because the body dies and goes away. And these emotions, which is the self that is attached to the body, also when the body dies, these are emotions that also just dissipate and go away. They don't live on forever. It's a false identity. But it is the soul that will go on and continue in everlasting life in heaven or in hell, or incarnate in better circumstances or in worse circumstances. The personality, these emotions cannot survive after the death of the body, except for the positive self. It does survive by leaving an imprint of sorts on the soul, and this just means that the soul may be affected by that personality of that good incarnation that it had, and therefore it becomes a part of him that will live on. That soul adopts this personality and kind of takes it with it wherever that it goes. But in essence, it's just feelings. So they end up going away afterwards. And so the body, the individual, is comprised of those three components. And the self is broken down into two parts. There's a good self and a bad self. Every human being that exists, he has two sides to him, does he not? He has good things about him, and he has bad things. He has a good side and he has a bad side. He has a good self and he has a bad self. And this is what was mentioned in the Quran, in the verse where it says that fear God that created you from oneself and its pair, oneself and its spouse, oneself and its partner. And he brought forward from you many men and women. And so this verse is often confused and thought to mean that we are human beings, mankind is created from oneself and its pair, meaning Adam and Eve. But in reality, the verse is talking about the self, and that what it's talking about is from that initial good self, that cluster of emotions that all mankind are created from these emotions, and those are the good emotions and the bad emotions, from this self, which is the good self, and its partner, which is the bad self. But if we pay closer attention to the verse, actually, it doesn't say all mankind. It says, and brought forth from them many men and women. So that means that not all men and women have within them this cluster of emotions or this self, but rather many of them do. And that's an interesting thing to point out, which we're going to get to here in a minute. But to go back to this concept of there being a good self and a bad self, or this good side and the bad side in every individual, we have this ancient Native American story that is actually not a Native American story, but it was actually attributed to the Native Americans in the writings of some of the Christians that had first immigrated to the United States back in the day. And it is actually an old saying of a prophet, and it was a Christian saying. It was one of the sayings of Jesus that ended up over time being a little bit distorted and attributed to the Native Americans, but nonetheless it's a beautiful story, and they featured it in a movie, in this scene where you have this Native American grandfather, and he's sitting around the fire with his Native American son. And he's telling him a story, and he's telling him that, son, my grandson, in every human being, there exists this struggle that's taking place between these two wolves. They live in every human, a good wolf and a bad wolf, a white wolf and a black wolf. And every single day when the person wakes up to the time that the person sleeps at night, these two wolves are struggling against each other. He says that one wolf is kind and generous and compassionate and good. The other wolf is evil and vicious and envious and greedy and has all of the bad traits. And the grandson looks at the grandfather and he asks him, "Okay, grandfather, well, which one of these two wolves wins in the end?" And then the grandfather kind of smiles and looks at his grandson and says, "Whoever it is that, whichever wolf you feed, whichever of them you feed." And what the grandfather was trying to say is that every human being has these two selves inside of them, the good and the bad. And based on the stimuli, what it is that we feed these selves with, one of those two sides will become more powerful, either our good side or our bad side. If we continue to feed our good side through actions of kindness and mercy, if we feed our good side through speaking good words and eating that which is halal and permissible, not that which is, for example, stolen, food that was stolen from other people, or food that is impure. If we hear good things, if we protect our ears ourselves, and we only feed it with stories of the prophets and the messengers, righteous good words, good speech, that people are telling us, and we stay away from that negative feedback, those attacks, abuse from individuals, if we stay away from gossip and hearing bad things or bad music that is talking about rape and killing and other things that will put these ideas and give strength to the evil self that is within us, if we focus our eyes and feed ourselves with gazing upon the words of God or the Caliph of God, or righteous good scenes, instead of gazing upon that which is impermissible, like pornography or spying on individuals or whatever else it is that is of a negative nature. If we protect our senses, protect ourselves through the feeding of the self via these senses, which are windows or doors to the outside world. If we feed it with positive, then the good wolf will win at the end of the day. If we feed it with negative, then the bad wolf will win at the end of the day. So it is of the utmost importance that a person safeguards his senses. And this is what the prophets and the messengers were trying to tell us the entire time. And because if a soul, if a person has a self that is extremely good, then it qualifies that person, that avatar, that body, that it becomes host to a righteous soul. And the opposite is true. Those who are involved in evil all the time will only allow for demons to possess them and evil souls to enter upon them. And so that is exactly what takes place in the time of the Qaim. You have these individuals that are living on the planet, and you have these good souls and these bad souls that are descending, and with one of the two types of selves having been empowered. So the individuals that have the good selves empowered, good souls will descend upon them, and those are the ones that are the companions of the bodies that have an-nafs al-mutma'inna, the self which is at peace with its Lord, in it. The good self, and we have the people on the opposite end that have the bad selves, al-nafs al-ammara bis-su', or the self that commands evil, having been empowered, and those the evil souls will descend on them. And then you have individuals that don't have a self at all. And that was the meaning of the verse, which I said that I was going to come back to, when it says that God created mankind from a self and its partner, and brought forward from it many men and women, and not all men and women. That's because there are some creatures that exist on the planet. There are beings, that men and women that exist on the planet, that don't have a self at all. and they don't have a self because they have defeated that self or gained total control over it. So the self has dissolved or been defeated, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that he had conquered his shaitan had submitted to him. And we know that the shaitan is the self, because Imam Ali alayhi salam said that everybody is the devil of his own self. Every person is the shaitan of his own self, because the ego, the bad self, is a shaitan. It's an illusionary one, but it is a shaitan. So those who have gained control over their selves and their souls are in full power of the vehicle, and that is the case with high souls like prophets and messengers, or that have reached high degrees of enlightenment, or dissolving into the veil of God, or in the case of angels that come down to the earth. The angels, they don't have selves; they are only souls, and so you have individuals that have good souls and good selves, and people that have bad souls and bad selves, and you have individuals that don't have any self and they just have a soul. And you also have other people that have a self that is still neither good nor bad totally. It's just somewhere in between, and no soul has descended yet upon them. And so that is, in short, in regards to the Raja, the return of the prophets and the messengers in this day and age, how it works, that they descend upon the various, vehicles that exist on the planet today in order to carry out and accomplish their mission. And before I go, though, I want to give a couple of examples of individuals that have reincarnated in this day and age into bodies that fulfill the similar mission which they seek to accomplish, in order to further clarify for our viewers how this whole thing operates. And so you have, was Imam Mahdi alayhi salam had revealed the incarnations of some of the particular people that are on our planet at this day and age. So you have Khusra, the Persian king who existed, tyrant at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's in charge of the Persian Empire. You have him returning in the form of, in the person of Ali Khamenei, the leader of Iran. So there's that soul. He's an ancient soul. He's an evil one. He returned today in the body of the Grand Ayatollah and Supreme Leader of Iran. So he's attached to that land. He wants to rule. His obsession is ruling. He oppressed his own people back in the day, and he wants to oppress his people in this day and age as well. So he found that self and that body, that avatar, which had the most potential to carry out his ambitions, was Ali Khamenei, and so he entered into him, and that is the incarnation or the return of Khusran this time. You have Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is the return of Julius Caesar, and you can even see a physical resemblance between the two. We have Nimrod, from the time of Abraham, who returned also to Iraq and ruled them for a very long time, and still affects their politics until this very day, and that is Nouri al-Maliki, who was the leader of Iraq after the war for a very long time. That's who the Americans ended up placing into, or propping into, power. You have the return of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, who many of the Sunnis, they love because he fought against the Crusaders, but he was actually a tyrant as well. And he returned in the form of Muhammad Morsi of Egypt during that time period. You have the return of Yazid, son of Muawiyah, in the form of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia. You also have the return of Harun al-Rashid, one of the Abbasid caliphs who oppressed the Imams from the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam and imprisoned them, returning in the form, having returned in the form of Saddam Hussein. And we also have, for example, Hulagu Khan, who was a Mongolian tyrant that returned as Adolf Hitler to accomplish the same thing that he accomplished before. And we also have Donald Trump, who is the return of Nero. And just as Nero destroyed Rome, Donald Trump is destroying America, which is modern day Rome all over again. So we have all of those. You have on the opposite end the prophets and the messengers also returning, but not in positions of power, but positions of oppressed people alongside the Qaim. You have the Qaim having 12 true brothers in this time. For example, he has many companions. All of the prophets and the messengers, they return with him. But he has, for example, from his brothers is Joshua, son of Nun, from his 12. And you have also the prophet Imran. You also have the prophet Ilyas. And you also have the prophet Jonah. And you also have the prophet David and the prophet Solomon. And so you have those returning with the Qaim, and you have them facing these powers of evil. And because Iblis is the prince of this world, as mentioned by on the tongues of Jesus and the prophets and the messengers, and he's the one who appoints the rulers. Any ruler that's appointed by man, he's actually brought into power by Iblis, because Iblis is the one who influences the choices of mankind. And so any choice that's not God's choice of a leader would ultimately be the choice of Satan, because it's the opposite to the choice of God. And so once again, the choices of the people brought into power Nimrod, and they brought into power Yazid, and they brought into power Harun al-Rashid, and they brought into power, all of these evil individuals, Khusra, and all of these people, and Julius Caesar. And at the same time, they rejected and oppressed, and you find walking in the streets unknown to the people, the prophets David and Solomon and Lot and Joseph and Krishna and Buddha, and all of the righteous returned. And inshallah, we'll do a very special episode very soon, in whereby we will reveal to the people a great number of the returned tyrants and kings in this day and age, and perhaps also some of the righteous souls as well. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this conversation that we had was fruitful, and that it was easy to understand for our listeners, and that they are able to understand the differences between the components of our identities, and that they have success in utilizing this time and age that we are in to make best of themselves and their bodies prepared and submissive enough that a righteous soul from God will descend upon them, and that they be used in this day and age to give victory to God's promised chosen caliph or vicegerent.
I used to think about what we are in as a whole. So you explained it very easily and clearly, that we have a body and a self, which is an illusion basically, and it's affected by the surroundings. And we have the soul. So it's pretty much simple and
easy to understand.
Yeah.
And for all those who are wondering of an example of somebody who has a good soul who's returned in this day and age, then I tell my viewers to look no further than Tahir Abbas, who has one of the purest selves and one of the purest souls in this day and age. And I say that, and I say not one word ever that is not true, because any word of praise, Ahmed Hassan says, that is said without being meant is hypocrisy, and I don't have a single bone in my body that embraces hypocrisy. And yeah, so God bless you and thank you so much, Tahir. You have a name that matches a self that is in you, and your name means pure, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, you have a pure soul and a pure self, and that makes your body pure as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you and safeguard you for this da'wah, and for Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, and for Ahmed Hassan the Yamani, and for the Qaim of the family of Muhammad, and for all of his religion, and make you play a vital role in all of this, as you have already done so much. Thank you so much, and God bless you. I love you.